Have you ever met someone so difficult that nobody wanted to stay around them? I'm talking about the kind of person whose presence alone can change the entire mood in a room. The kind of person whose reputation for rudeness spreads faster than wildfire. Well, let me tell you a story about a millionaire whose attitude was so notorious, the staff at a small-town diner would whisper warnings as soon as his black Mercedes appeared outside. But everything changed when one new waitress, carrying not only her own troubles but also a new life inside her, walked through the door. What happened next? It's something you have to hear to believe. It all started in a humble, old-fashioned diner sitting at the edge of a growing city. You know, the type red vinyl booths, the gentle hum of chatter and that ever-present aroma of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. The pancakes were golden and fluffy, and the coffee was brewed strong, enough to wake even the sleepiest regulars. The place had its quirks, but it had something more heart. Locals would gather in the mornings to swap stories, share laughs, and for just a while, forget their worries. But there was one shadow that always seemed to hang over the place. Mr. Russell, tall, always immaculately dressed, his dark hair sprinkled with just enough silver to suggest both age and authority. He had the kind of presence that made people tense up, but it wasn't just his appearance. He was sharp-tongued, critical, and entirely uninterested in anyone else's feelings. Every waitress dreaded the sight of his car, knowing the morning would bring another round of impossible demands and cold, clipped remarks. He'd bark out, orders, eggs, over easy. Don't mess them up this time. Coffee, black, not like last time, hot, not lukewarm. He'd snap his fingers if the service wasn't fast enough, or if he simply wanted attention. And if anything was less than perfect, he'd make sure the entire diner heard about it. The crazy part, he always left massive tips. Some staff tried to tough it out, hoping the money would be worth it. But almost every one of them left sooner or later, some fighting back tears, others gritting their teeth, a few quitting right there in the middle of a shift. It became a running joke that the only thing permanent about the staff was how quickly they left the manager. A kindly middle-aged man named Stan did his best, but with business slowing down and Russell being the diner's biggest spender, his hands were tied. We have to put up with him, he'd sigh, or close our doors for good. Then, one rainy Tuesday, as gray clouds hung low and rain tapped gently on the windows, the diner's bell chimed and someone new walked in. Her name was MIA. She was about 7 months pregnant, her belly rounding gently under a simple dress, and she carried herself with a quiet grace, even as she seemed a bit tired. She'd just moved to town, hoping for a fresh start. For Mia, this job was more than a paycheck. It was a lifeline. On her very first day, Stan pulled her aside. "Listen, Mia," he said, his tone gentle but serious. "There's a customer you should know about Russell. He's tough. If it gets to be too much, come get me. We don't want you stressed, especially in your condition." Mia just smiled a warm, brave smile that made even Stan feel better. "Thank you, Stan. I appreciate it. I'll do my best." It wasn't long before Russell arrived right on schedule. The rain hadn't slowed him down. The other waitresses shot nervous glances at Mia. "It's your table," one whispered. The whole diner seemed to hold its breath. Mia picked up a coffee pot, smoothed her apron, and walked over with a gentle calm. "Good morning, sir. My name's Mia. Can I get you started with coffee?" Russell barely looked up from his phone. "Black, hot, and don't take all day," he snapped. Unfazed, Mia nodded, coming right up. There was no bitterness, just calm respect. She poured his coffee and set it down gently, making sure the handle faced him just so. Russell, as usual, found something wrong with everything. "Eggs are too runny," he complained, pushing his plate back. "Toast is burnt. Fork isn't clean enough." Mia listened, really listened. And instead of shrinking away or apologizing profusely, she nodded and calmly promised to make it right. But there was something different about the way she handled him. When he snapped, she didn't flinch. When he scowled, she met his gaze, her eyes full of patient understanding. When he muttered under his breath about useless staff, she simply asked if there was anything else she could do to help. Days turned into weeks. Mia didn't quit. She learned how he liked his coffee piping hot, never reheated. She noticed how he tapped his fingers when he was growing impatient, and how he'd stare out the window for a few extra seconds after finishing his meal, as if he was searching for something just out of reach. The other waitresses were amazed. "How do you do it?" one asked during a break. "He's never satisfied. He's made so many of us cry." Mia smiled softly, her hand resting gently on her stomach. "Sometimes people aren't rude because of us. Sometimes it's because of something inside them. Maybe he's lonely. Or maybe he's just forgotten how to be happy." Her words stuck with the staff. though they weren't quite sure what to make of them. Still, they couldn't deny the effect Mia was having. One morning, during the busiest rush of the week, disaster struck in the kitchen. Plates crashed to the floor, someone shouted, and the whole diner went quiet. Mia excused herself from Russell's table, apologizing quickly, and rushed to help. She helped clean up the mess, reassured a panicked young cook, and managed to keep things moving. When she returned, Russell was even more irritated. "Do you even care about your job? I come here for a peaceful meal, not to watch a circus." For just a moment, Mia's composure slipped. She looked exhausted, her hands trembling slightly. But she drew in a slow breath, steadied herself, and said quietly, "I'm sorry for the disruption, sir. My job is important to me, just as your work is important to you. I want to make sure you have the best experience I can offer." Russell stared at her, as if seeing her for the first time. "Nobody else tries that hard. Why do you?" Mia paused, then answered honestly, "Because everyone deserves kindness, even on their worst days. Maybe especially then." For the first time, Russell was at a loss for words. The weeks continued. Russell didn't transform overnight, but his complaints grew softer, less cutting. One morning, Mia was carrying a heavy tray, her balance slightly off. Without a word, Russell stood up from his seat and helped her set it down. The gesture was so out of character that the whole diner noticed. "Should you be working like this?" he asked, his voice less gruff than usual. Mia gave a tired but genuine smile. "I need to. My baby's coming soon, but I'm okay. Thank you for helping." Russell seemed to struggle with what to say next. After a long pause, he asked quietly, "What about the baby's father?" Mia's eyes lowered. "He's not around, it's just me, but I'll be fine." Russell said nothing for a long moment, but something in his expression softened. For the first time, he saw not just a waitress, but a young woman facing the world with courage and hope. The next day, Russell left an envelope with his tip. Inside was a simple note: "Thank you for your kindness. It's rare in this world. If you ever need anything, ask." Tears sprang to Mia's eyes. She tucked the note away, but she never asked for anything. She kept showing up, kept working, kept offering Russell the same gentle patience, day after day. A few weeks later, Mia didn't come to work. The manager got a call she'd gone into labor. The staff pooled their money for flowers and a card, wanting her to know they missed her. To everyone's shock, Mr. Russell showed up carrying a small, soft teddy bear. He handed it silently to the manager. "For Mia, tell her I hope everything goes well." Days passed, and the diner felt a little emptier without Mia's warmth. The regulars noticed, too. Her absence was like the sun being hidden behind the clouds. Finally, Mia returned, baby in tow, her eyes tired but shining with joy. The staff celebrated, showering her with hugs and congratulations. And to everyone's surprise, Russell was waiting at his usual table, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He didn't bark orders, he didn't complain. He just waited quietly until Mia came over. "How are you, Mia?" And the baby. Mia beamed. "We're both good, thank you." From that day on, things changed. Russell became less of a tyrant and more of a regular entity. Started chatting with me, asking about her son, sharing stories about his own past. He even began tipping the other staff with polite words, not just with money. One afternoon, Russell lingered in the empty diner. He looked around, taking in the laughter and warmth, then turned to Mia. "You know, all my life I've built walls. I thought money and power meant respect, but you showed me respect even when I didn't deserve it." "Why?" Mia thought for a moment, then said, "Kindness is free, and sometimes it's the only thing someone can give. When you give it, it grows." Russell nodded, his voice soft. "Well, you changed me, Mia, more than anyone ever has." Russell became a fixture at the diner. Over time, he quietly helped Mia with expenses for her baby, slipping money to the manager for diapers and doctor visits, never making a show of it. The staff saw the transformation, and the diner felt lighter, warmer, more like home. And so, the legend of Mia, the pregnant waitress who outlasted the rude millionaire, grew, not because she fought back, but because she met anger with compassion, bitterness with patience, and cruelty with unyielding kindness. Diner knew. Mia never boasted about Russell's generosity, but he became something like a proud, awkward grandfather. He brought toys and books, never minding if other customers teased him about his softer side. As the weeks passed, Russell began helping not just MIA, but others in small ways. He bought new uniforms for the staff, paid for repairs in the kitchen, and even treated the regulars to free coffee some mornings. The transformation was so complete that even Stan would sometimes catch himself grinning when Russell walked through the door. But kindness, as Mia knew, isn't always easy. One afternoon, the diner was busy and noisy, and Mia was exhausted. Her baby, Liam, was sick with a fever and she'd barely slept. In the chaos, she spilled a tray of food right at Russell's feet. Plates shattered, coffee splashed onto his shoes, and the whole diner fell silent. The old Russell would have exploded. He would have shouted, demanded to see the manager, maybe even stormed out. But the new Russell simply looked at me, eyes full of panic and apology, and then did something nobody expected. He knelt down beside her and started helping clean up, gently, quietly, without a word of complaint. "Accidents happen, Mia," he said softly. "You need a break. Why don't you go check on Liam? I'll cover for you with Stan." Mia's eyes filled with grateful tears. She nodded, whispering a thank you, and hurried to call her neighbor to check on her son when she returned. Russell was sitting in his booth, chatting with a pair of teenagers who were regulars after school. He was telling stories, funny ones, about his own childhood. Laughter drifted from the table. Mia watched, amazed, as the one-sicey millionaire became part of the heart and soul of the diner. But the real test came a few months later. Mia's rent was raised suddenly and she was told she'd have to move out if she couldn't pay the increase. She tried not to show her worry, but Russell noticed right away. "What's wrong?" he asked quietly one evening as the diner was closing. Mia hesitated, but finally told him the truth. "They're raising the rent. I don't know how I'm going to manage it all. I might have to move out of town." Russell was silent for a moment. Then he shook his head. "You're not going anywhere. I own half the buildings on this street. I'll talk to your landlord, and if he won't listen, I'll find you something better myself." True to his word, the very next day, Russell spoke with Mia's landlord. Within hours, the rent was lowered, and Mia was told she could stay as long as she liked. For the first time, Mia let herself lean on someone else. She realized that kindness wasn't just something you gave, but something you could receive. As the months rolled on, the diner became a local legend. People came not just for the pancakes, but for the feeling of warmth, of community, of hope, and at the heart of it all were Mia and Russell, proof that even the hardest hearts can change, and that kindness is the greatest spark of all. One evening, as the last customers filtered out and the sun dipped low, Russell and Mia sat together by the window. Liam was asleep in his stroller beside them. Russell looked at Mia, a soft smile creasing his face. "You know," he said, "for years I thought the world was cold and unforgiving. I thought being tough was the only way to survive. But you taught me something, Mia. You taught me that kindness isn't weakness, it's the greatest strength of all." Mia reached over, squeezing his hand. "Thank you, Russell, for believing in me, for being there." Russell's eyes shone. "No thank you, Mia. You changed my life." And as the streetlights flickered on, casting golden pools on the empty sidewalk, they sat together, two unlikely friends, united by kindness, forever changed by the sparks they gave each other. That's the story of Mia and Russell, the story of how, with nothing but patience and kindness, one woman transformed a heart once thought unchangeable. And maybe, just maybe, that's a spark we can all carry with us no matter where we go.